she's been carrying the pain around for the past 30 years.
This is my son, Wang Nan. He died on Nanchang Street, in front of Tiananmen Square. He was in high school. He was only 19.
In the early hours of June 4th, 1989, Wang Nan left home to take pictures of the student protests that had started over a month before. But that night, on orders of the Communist Party, the army stepped in and shot at the crowd. One of those shots went through Wang Nan's head. His mother has been unable to properly mourn her son ever since. The Chinese authorities refuse to acknowledge the massacre.
The pain I have in my heart will never go away. These memories will never go away. If they recognized the massacre, I would be relieved. My son isn't the only case. There are so many other victims. This doesn't just concern my family. It's the entire country's tragedy.
Today in China, no one talks publicly of the events of the spring of 1989. The younger generation either knows nothing about it or avoids the topic altogether.
您知道1989年6月4日是什么日子吗？不知道。好吗？您见过这个照片吗？
没有。
那您知道天安门事件是什么吗？
天安门事件，好像也不了解。
In China, remembering Tiananmen is taboo. But not in semi-autonomous Hong Kong, where some want to keep the memory alive. In this small museum, history is preserved thanks to newspaper clippings, books banned in China, and objects that belong to victims. This helmet and these glasses belong to Wang Nan, the son of Jiang Xianling, whom we met in Beijing.
A lot of people will enforce their knowledge that it's exactly someone being shot and dead during the June 4th crackdown. It's exactly the very important evidence.
But even in Hong Kong, it can be tough to keep such a place open. In 2016, a previous museum had to close its doors following legal trouble. Its owners blamed Beijing.
They do not want the people to know the truth. Because once people know the truth, people will ask the government to reveal what happened and who should be responsible. Because that is clearly a kind of crackdown and shooting to the Chinese people. So that's why Chinese government is hoping people forget that incident.
Hong Kong has become a remembrance place. While Chinese media censors any mention of the massacre, this radio station gives a voice to those who witnessed the tragedy. In 1989, Esther Lung was 29 years old.
I witnessed the massacre. I saw several dead bodies being transported to the hospital. That's the truth, and we can't stop telling it, even 30 years later.
This file contains many of her memories of the events, including these 2 cassette tapes that have been digitized. She recorded the killings.
We just heard protesters shouting, "You're monsters, stop shooting." But just after that, we can hear more shots directed at those who were trying to block the army. I was so close.
Cai Chongguo also remembers June 4th, 1989 very well. He was protesting on the square that day. He's now in asylum in France. He'd rather remember the student movement that proved China was capable of democracy than talk about the massacre.
The student protests before the massacre show very well how one event can transform China. How Chinese people, if given the possibility or the space, they can overcome difficulties and learn how to organize. They can learn how to elect and prepare elections, and they are capable of living in a democratic system.
On Tiananmen Square, 30 years after the bloody events of June 4th, gatherings are not allowed. And the army still hasn't left.